What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Ultimate Dino Ninja channel. Now, I'm gonna apologize for last week. If you guys didn't know, didn't look at my community tab or something like that, my phone screen broke, so my uploads were kind of iffy, especially when I'm working with my tablet, which did not really like to work with me. So, I do apologize for that. But, rather than wasting y'all's time, I am going to go ahead and shout out all the people that joined the Discord and jump straight into this what if. So, I want to thank Koneko Tojo, Mar Matum, Overhalix, Ghost 22006, Anime Weekly, Frosty Chill, Omen Miner, I guess would be how you pronounce it. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong. 123. Dash Jin. Matthew WXD. Ashido Broken Record. PUYCK MX5. Taco Man. Lightning Bolt Kilo Lightning Bolt. Ken. Pepsi Juice. Didi. Ray's Missing Ear, Tycho, Zoiduk, Corpse Husband. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't think I can pronounce all the symbols here, but I'm pretty sure Victor is in the name. You know you, Victor. I think Forval? Dr. Zero. Thank you all for joining Discord. If you guys want to join Discord, down in the description down below. Next week we plan to be hosting a Minecraft event, so if you want to be a part of that, please do go check out the description. Go join the Discord, chat. All the people on there are nice, or at least I believe them to be nice. I know I tend to yell at people that tend to be just slightly rude. So, if you want to, go ahead and join the Discord down below. Now let's jump straight into this what if. Where we left off, Izuku got caught up with understanding the situation his friend Bell was in. Now, Bell, of course, tended to be a righteous hero and decided to try to help. But Izuku's face kind of waned when hearing about what was going to be eventually the final thing, that Bell was going to have to kill Artemis. Well, to be more accurate, Artemis got eaten up by a weird monster, and this monster was trying to use her divinity to bring downfall onto the entire world. Izuku was already against killing her, but hearing the reasoning, he was hoping he could try to find a way. Though he had some ideas, he didn't know how to put any of them to the test. That's when he decided that he would ask Artemis herself some questions. Seeing how Izuku mandatory required him, wasn't much asking, he more or less stated that he was going to be taken for the trip as well, because he didn't want to leave Bell with either A, the guilt of killing someone, or B, not being able to save him. And Izuku knew he most likely had a way or two, seeing how he was trying to expand his belief on time magic, that he could probably reverse the effects that were happening inside the area. Of course, Izuku didn't know to the full extent of what was happening, but he still believed there was a chance that maybe he can undo what has been done, even though that directly falls against the basic philosophy of time magic. Izuku sighed, not knowing what else to make of his current situation. No one really understanding how he felt was Aiz, who was also standing next to him. Hestia also claimed that she wished to come, but Hermes shot down Hestia rather quickly. He had heard of Izuku, so that's why he permitted Izuku to come in. He also knew if he came, there was a decent amount of chance that Aiz was going to come. And when the requirement was that they needed to at least be strong enough to try to help, he couldn't think of any more better people than the sword hero and the one that tamed the sword hero, or the sword princess, not hero. Of course, Hestia was not happy that her one Familia member was gonna go to a continent that she didn't even know about and be gone for 11 days. But Izuku reassured Hestia, stating that, if anything, she can trust him, which Hestia knew Izuku was a pretty good guy, even entrusting him to bring Izuku his knife while the rampaging gorilla was going around. So Hestia knew Izuku could be trusted with pretty decent degree. She also knew that Izuku, God, what am I talking about? Izuku was, with a relatively, best way to explain it, polite demeanor, and knew that Hermes, if left unchecked, would probably get into some trouble. Izuku then remembered that he also had to probably talk to Loki about the situation, deciding that he would bring along Eyes and Hermes, as well as Belle and Artemis, and Hestia too, even though he doubted that his goddess was going to be happy to see Hestia. He at least knew his goddess was intelligent enough and most likely wouldn't mind if he decided to go try to save someone. Then again, he would also be taking Eyes with him, which their goddess might be just slightly against. Izuku eventually ended up riding back to the Twilight Manor. Even though he didn't stay here often, he still occasionally checked in to get his stats checked and updated for various different reasons. Of course, this time when he showed up, however, it was for a different reason. He showed up, and much to dismay, had also decided to bring along Hestia, seeing how it did kind of acquire one of her main Familia members for the entire operation to commence. Because Izuku felt, even though, yes, his goddess most likely would not be happy with Hestia around, also knew that it would be kind of unfair to Hestia if he just solely left her out. So, Izuku, of course, brought along Hestia as well. Once they entered there, they requested to see Finn, and with Finn knowing Hermes, and looking around at all the other goddesses, as well as Izuku and Sword and Eyes standing there with a kid that he knew to be Belle, one of Izuku's friends, and a female that appeared to be a goddess, he knew that the situation must be dire if he was just asking to meet Loki. Luckily, Loki wasn't busy, of course. Izuku ended up entering the room, and Loki was kind of shocked to see Izuku enter. She knew that Izuku didn't tend to hang out around the manor. It wasn't that he wanted to be disjointed from the Familia, much more akin to him just still not knowing what he should do about the situation he was in. Of course, he decided to muddy the water by dating Eyes, but Loki chalked that up mainly to pure aspiration and wanting to find companionship in an unfamiliar area, which Eyes was just also looking for, figuring it would be better for both of them. Once Loki saw everyone else enter, though, her surprise and shock slowly turned to more of a disgruntled expression as she looked over to see one of her arch enemies show up. This, of course, caused Loki to be kind of upset, and then her Familia member walked in, which, once again, caused Loki to be even more upset, thinking that maybe they decided to start another War Games, even though it would be unlikely, seeing how she hadn't heard any information about it. Her information network was rather large, of course, but then she saw Hermes walk in, And almost like if pieces clicked into place, she figured that Deku was called upon by Hermes, or maybe Deku was talking with Belle and Hermes just happened to show up, causing, of course, her to believe that Izuku had gone probably to the red light district and either want to apologize or most likely ask her to help deal with the god that now hanged around him. But then again, she saw eyes there, which caused her to doubt her earlier expectations about the situation. Eventually, once all of them are seated, Loki looked towards Deku, knowing that Deku was most likely the main facilitator of this event. And she looked at Izuku, saying, "Izuku, yes, Loki-sama? What's with all the guests here today? Unless if you're trying to perform a riot, I would love to know." And this caused Izuku to slightly flex backwards, cause he already knew it wasn't a smart idea to bring Hestia, much less Hermes, which he guessed was on a little bit more of a negative side with his goddess. Izuku then stated that Belle had pulled an arrow, from the looks of it, from a stone, causing him to make Artemis manifest a sort of spiritual body, and that Artemis's body was off on a distant continent, being absorbed by a creature that they most likely need to go stop it before it ruined the mortal world. And of course, that Izuku also wanted to help out. This caused Loki mild frustration, but she knew very well that if she tried to stop Izuku would just do it anyway, most likely sneaking off in the middle of the night. It was one of his traits that she had hoped to try to get him to dismiss, looking for himself in the future. But knowing that it was hard to dismiss someone's base personality in action, she was mostly against it. Of course, Loki also knew that there were ways to limit it, but decided against it, mainly because she didn't want to force Izuku into a path that he himself did not wish for. She may be the goddess of trickery, but she wasn't the goddess of overbearing resentment. This caused Loki to very simply sigh, and she said, "So, what continent are you going to?" Which Izuku then stated, the Dark Continent, which caused Loki's eyes to widen before she sighed a massive sigh and rubbed the temples of her head together, her hands on her temples. Obviously, greatly upsetting Loki, which Izuku once again felt kind of sad for, or not really sad, guilty about, because no matter how he could see it, Loki was easily the second most important person here behind Eyes in his general perspective. She was the one that helped him out at the start, making his life easier. And he really hoped that Loki wouldn't be too upset with his choices and his actions. Loki then looked at Izuku, and she said in the plainest voice, "Now I know I can't stop you. It's that stupid hero quirk of yours which makes you quite a bothersome person. Especially, being more realistic on the hero portion. But that doesn't mean I have no way of keeping in contact with you. Seeing how this trip should take roughly around 11 days, I expect a daily report." Izuku was confused, of course. He could understood if they had some sort of means of communication here, akin to a phone, but of course Izuku didn't know of one that would act that way. Before, Loki reached into a drawer and pulled out a certain weird item that Izuku didn't know what it was. But most of the other people there knew what it was. Izuku reached into it and saw Loki reached into her desk and saw Izuku's bewilderment before pulling out a item that Izuku saw was just a general scroll. Of course, Loki then explained that this was a communication scroll, a pretty expensive item, and that he should treat it very well, and that if he had lost it, she would kill her himself. Izuku took the scroll and thanked Loki for it, when Loki then said, "Don't thank me. Thank me by keeping in touch." Now, these scrolls aren't really useful when it comes to going into dungeons, but seeing how you're just traveling across the continent, it should work just fine. I want daily updates, and I want to know what you're doing and how it's going. If I don't get updated every day, you best bet there be hell when you come back. Izuku then quickly swallowed, knowing that he probably shouldn't anger a god, seeing how he's in a god himself. Though Izuku knew that it was apparent a possibility that people can become gods in this world, then again, no mortal had even reached the point to be able to call himself as such. Izuku, knowing that Fauna itself, at base, forced the person's soul, or however it worked, to more or less become a step closer to a divine being. So theoretically, if you get high enough on your level, you should be able to become divine. Or a god in this case. Which Izuku really didn't want to do, but wasn't against it in any sort of situation. Then again, that doesn't mean he was all for it either. Izuku gladly took the scroll and thanked Loki for it. Loki looked towards Hermes, who had a albeit small but still visible smirk. As Loki then looked directly in Hermes' eyes and said, "If anything happens to them, you will be the one that has to pay." She then looks to everyone, Hestia, and asked if she was heading there as well. Hestia said no, that she wasn't actually going to head there herself, because Hermes had denied. The only reason why Hermes was heading was to, in case the mission failed, alert the gods so most of them can head back to heaven, leaving the mortal world, of course, to, well, die in the nicest way he could put it. Which, once again, started to upset Izuku, because he's starting to see that some gods thought of this world more as like akin to a playground for children rather than a place where actual people lived. Which, granted, Izuku might be seeing this in a more negative light, akin to being someone who really didn't like the idea of people's lives being treated like that, but granted, that's the way it was. Whether Izuku liked it or not, gods in this world just seem to have an inherent cockiness, and then again, Izuku wouldn't blame them, seeing how they were literally gods. There would be no reason for them to act any other way than they already have. Of course, Izuku disliked the idea of gods still acting this way. Doesn't change the fact that that's how they were going to act. Eventually, they got into the details of the trip, stating that the trip was going to take about 11 whole days to occur. This caused Izuku annoyance, even though his goddess had stated earlier. Izuku sighed before asking if there was any quicker means of travel. Of course, Hermes said no, the quickest means would be applicable through trained wyverns, which they were going to get from the Ganesha's family, which trained in taming beasts and monsters. Of course, taming monsters and actually being able to use the monsters they tamed were two different things, but wyverns tend to be a little bit on the nicer side. Izuku sighed, deciding not to try to pick a fight with a god today, even though he found the god's actions, in the nicest sense, slightly annoying. Izuku decided to then ask, okay, so it's going to take 11 days for us to end up making it there. Now, the issue here would be the base issue of Artemis's Familia. She was saying that her Familia was wiped out. And if we're in the essence of time, there should be a quicker way to make it. Hermes then sighed, saying, if you can think of a better way to make it quicker than a god of travel can, I would love to find out. But, until then, take the words of the god of travel seriously. This caused Izuku to feel slightly upset because of the obvious factor that he was being kind of rude to the literal god of traveling, seeing if there's any better way to travel. Granted, Izuku, once again, didn't really care if he was the god of traveling or not, but had to give qualities to the man himself because of the pure factor of what he controlled. Izuku sighed before excusing himself to go to bed. Of course, Aiz decided to excuse herself as well. Even though they really didn't sleep in the same room, they now slept right next to each other. In different rooms, of course. And it was kind of funny how their beds were literally pushed up against the wall. Izuku laid down, thinking about today, and wondered how or what he can do to change the situation itself. Izuku was thinking about using Aries' quirk to try to see if he can rewind it. That was his main thought, of course. Seeing how being able to rewind it before she was Ain should be able to separate her. Then again, how they would bind the creature is the question. The only other thing he could think of was maybe tapping into Overhaul's quirk. Even though Izuku disliked Overhaul, for especially what he did for Eri, he couldn't help but admit Overhaul's abilities would be more useful. Even though he would disdain using a villain's quirk, he would choose to use a villain's quirk rather than watching someone else have to be killed. Izuku sighed, realizing that these next 11 days were going to be rough on him as he gently falls asleep. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.